इंडिया की हिस्ट्री बुक्स में नॉर्थ ईस्ट इज नॉट रिप्रेजेंटेड, एंड दैट इज अ वेरी क्रिटिकल क्रूशियल प्रॉब्लम जो अब सरकार की नज़र में है, एंड शायद एनसीईआरटी वगैरह कुछ करना चाहते हैं. Secondly, I'll say about the sensitization. We are, as the entire Indian society is a deeply insensitive, deeply racist society.
Okay, third thing, we are asking for also the setting up on the lines of Justice Mehra to look into all forms of racial discrimination that happened in Delhi NCR in the many years, because so many children have died in this city.
So, on the second thing, Manish is the Education Minister of Delhi, and he has already spoken to his officers, and in principle we agree that the history of Northeast India would be adequately included in the syllabus in Delhi, and so that the children should know the history of different parts of India, and they should not treat people from different parts of India as aliens.
We shouldn't be judged by what we are wearing or how do we look like. We were in an auto, 4 of us, some 4 guys in 2 bikes. They were following us the whole time. They were passing comments and then they were calling us chinkies. Even in college, they call us chinkies. And
the 23-year-old from Kohima feels her biggest enemy is ignorance. Ignorance amongst the general Indian public about the culture and customs of the Northeast. Sometimes even ignorance about basic geography.
Even if they're from India, they are not aware of this place called Nagaland.
India is just a 64-year-old republic. It may be a very ancient civilization, but it's a very young nation. It's like an adolescence. And there will be growing up pangs which will include racial prejudice against the people of Northeast.
Today you are aware that most of the states in the Northeast are inflicted by certain inherent problems, including the problem of militancy. That means there has been substantial level of sense of alienation prevailing, and then this has been basically being taken advantage of by certain vested interests in those parts of the country.
I did 5 years of Indian history. There was not a single chapter of India's Northeast in our history textbooks, in NCERT or New GC books. If you do not learn anything about 40 million people belonging to 272 ethnic groups, how will you love, respect us? We may have small eyes, snub nose, but we are intelligent people who equally feel for this country. So definitely it is high time, wake up, people of India, wake up, that this racial discrimination does exist in our country.
My purpose was integration. I was an Indian born within this land who was seeking salvation through cultural unification. But how does one bring together a nation that is so diverse that a few kilometers apart can change the lifestyle of people? Unification meant that I dwelled deep into the cultural embodiment that comprised of northeastern India. What I knew about the Northeast was simply too factual, that was given to me by the media and the internet. What I learnt about the Northeast was the truth. I believed that wasn't what was true. I believed that there was an underlying story and that the people there only wanted someone to listen. This is that story. The tales of the part of India that we know very little about. It taught me many things, but mostly showed me adventure, fear, hospitality, humanity, friendship, animosity, and inspiration. I honestly did not know what lay ahead. Symbolically speaking, I was excited to see what was beyond the misty paths ahead. My fear of doing this alone gave me the strength to not look back. Sometimes it was the people's lifestyle out there that intrigued me to just observe. I spent my entire life up until now rushing through my days. It taught me that the most knowledgeable one is the one who observes quietly and absorbs that information. Herding, fishing, foraging. There was so much simplicity here. These people knew what life gave them and never wanted anything more. They literally made their own living. I even had the privilege of meeting hunters along the way. As much as my excitement existed, I did feel a sense of fear that was befitting to the situation. It's not every day that someone meets an armed hunter and lives to tell about it. One of the main aspects, if not the main aspect of any traveler's journey, is food. Finding the right food among the lot that I saw was beautiful. What was hardest was wondering if it was safe. I maintained a strict vegetarian diet for this trip because I could not risk falling sick. However, wherever I got home-cooked food, I gladly accepted. Traveling solo has taught me a couple of things. The motorcycle is my best friend, and that I need to find ways to communicate even with the language barriers. A policeman decided to investigate what I was up to, because I was a suspicious man with a fancy motorcycle up here with big bags. When I told him what I was doing, he gave me a piece of advice. Being an architect, I believe my job is complicated. One time I even thought that other people have it simpler. It's when you actually go out there and see these that you realize it's not as simple as it seems. Sometimes engineering marvels exist right in front of our eyes. Awaiting my arrival to the Northeast, I was curious about tales from the Seven Sister States. I wanted to better understand the Mongoloid Tibeto-Burman population that comprised of the diverse Hindu, Muslim and Christian populations here. It imbibed my need to understand the insurgency that existed between each of the states and against the government as well. Finding the right route is hard, especially when you are faced with reports of insurgents. I had to change my route of entry into the Northeast because of reports of danger along the other paths. So I changed my plan from going to Assam to just passing through Assam, the tea capital of India. The name Assam meant uneven, given the uneven terrain that facilitates the growth of tea here. To reach Assam, I had to enter through Siliguri Corridor, or more commonly known as the Chicken's Neck. This area is heavily guarded because it is a narrow strip of land that connects 3 countries together and sees a large influx of illegal immigrants. Along my journey into the Northeast, I came across this indigenous small-scale industry that manufactures the Banjira clay coal drum, a percussion instrument handmade using jute, animal hide, and clay. A hole is punched into the bottom to ensure high bass sounds, and the hide is hardened by means of clay and wood fire. This instrument is unique to the northeastern part of India. Assam is made up of the Bodo and the Kachari tribes. The people here rely on small-scale industries for their livelihood. The tribes from these regions only make a living using clean and green methods and don't pollute at all. My journey through Assam led me to Meghalaya. The only way I could accomplish this was by traversing the powerful Brahmaputra River. And my motorcycle, in all certainty, was not amphibious. The Brahmaputra, named after Lord Brahma, begins its journey in Tibet as Yarlung, or royal blood. It is one of the Ganges' largest tributaries, accounting for nearly 30% of the country's freshwater resources. The sheer size and volume of the river has caused land loss and flooding, which still plagues Bangladesh to this day. The floods are a major concern for people and a reason for their immigration into India. The plans to tap the hydroelectric potential here have also raised some concerns among inhabitants. As night fell, I took the policeman's advice. The hospitality that the people of this part of the country showed was astounding. I always found myself a home to sleep in for the night. This is where it all begins, Meghalaya. The land of the clouds was more than scenic when I arrived here. It was a route that I was forced to take due to reports of insurgents and danger lurking in the other possible routes. My plan here was to meet up with an old acquaintance at Shillong. The route and the lack of assistance made me doubt my ability to reach the city. Days into my ride, I had felt the problems of instability here creep up due to blocked routes, curfews, and the temperature. From Meghalaya, I had to enter Assam, the middle ground for all the Northeast. No matter where I needed to go in another state, I had to pass through Assam multiple times. The biggest problem that Assam faces today is illegal immigration that is reducing the local Assamese population. The demographic transformation had overwhelmed the Assamese, who were known since 1971 for being extremely amicable people. At this point, I had lost my ATM card and was looking for a way to procure a new one. However, that didn't go too well. But the people helped me by arranging accommodation and giving me routes and travel advice in order to help a traveler. It is a smart decision to listen to the locals here, since they know these places the best. And riding solo meant one more thing. I had to become the cinematography crew, which meant that I had to leave my camera lying around in order to get the good shots. My biggest fear on this leg of the journey was to be caught out at night. The sun sets here earlier than the south, so I always had to ensure that I found a roof before nightfall. The beauty of Assam lies in its rolling landscapes. The natural tea estates here give rise to some of the best tea leaves the country has seen. Women here are the tea bearers. Their delicate hands harvest the leaves. It is a tasking job. It takes extreme diligence because the leaf that has not been maintained intact cannot be used for processing. And harvesting the leaves takes a lot of time. The jungle brings with it a peculiar sound, one that whistles all throughout. The echo of the sound is unmistakable as evening sets in. I found it extremely surprising to know that these are the kind of roads that people use to commute here every day. It brings a person to think about how many advantages a person has been given. Out here, even transport is tough. Through all this hardship, people still find a way to continue living their lives out. It displays the perseverance that humans can show. These roads are not even a single lane's width from what we see down south, although now the government is taking the initiative to construct the roads here. The political instability here in the state has caused a lot of issues within the people. There have been over 20 different governments for the state since it split from Assam in 1972. The unstable government has caused the economy to go downhill. This could be attributed to the neglect that the state receives from the center. As I crossed Assam and entered Meghalaya, I could feel the separation from the people. It was unsettling to know that I had my Indian comrades here, and yet they would keep themselves afar. The economy of the state strives with activities like arrow gambling, which is a practice that has existed here for 50 years, and illegal coal mining. The youth here are the spearheads of these activities, and ironically, women are the family heads who inherit the wealth. Much like the clouds that the state represents, it appears calm from a distance, but is only a seed to an upcoming storm. The turmoil that exists within the youth is unseen to the common eye. However, these people seem to have troubles that still plague the state. Meghalaya consists of the Garo, Khasi and Jaintia hill divisions. The wonderful thing about the Khasi and Jaintia tribes is that the women inherit the lands of their deceased ancestors. The daughters get the most attention and education. Here, women run the community, as opposed to other parts of India. It even boasts a really high sex ratio when compared to the rest of the country. 974 females per 1,000 males. The Khasis were migrants from Assam and were known to be very powerful people. They're also well known for giving their children Western names, such as Elvis Presley, named after the rock personalities. The Garos were Tibetan descendants who had a fierce reputation of being headhunters, and the male prowess was determined by the number of heads he owned. It was time for me to head on to the next region, and I had to make my way back to Assam to do so. On my way out, I found this intriguing old man who had stayed at the monastery for 42 years. He had these typical Mongoloid features and was a worshipper of the Lord Shiva. It is not unnatural to find these monks in these regions. After all, this is the land of gods. This man blessed me on my way. The most satisfying experience I had on this trip was the faces that I got to see. There was never a dearth of people that were interested in my journey and wanted to be a part of it. I enjoyed, for the most part, hanging out with these folks and taking photographs alongside them to remember the cultural unity that I was aiming to achieve. It was along the path to Mizoram that I happened to come across an intriguing set of children that were catching a type of small animal like the mole that is found here. They caught it in these handmade wicker traps that were woven by their parents. It's not uncommon in these regions to have children help out to a certain degree so as to distribute work evenly between themselves and their families. I also happened to witness several skilled hunters running around with rifles. Mizoram means people of the hill country. High hills, deep gorges and rivers make up the state's primary geographical features. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Mizo people were feared across many tribes. They were highly superstitious nomads and performed various ritual sacrifices. Since then, times have changed. After the formation of the state in 1987, the Mizo tribes became more receptive of development and have taken the path forward. Today, the Mizos are a Tibeto-Burman population that is closely knit among 5 tribes. They are a no-distinction group of people who show no difference between religion, sex, or status. Having originally started out as a tribal group, the Mizos were influenced by Christian missionaries that arrived here in the 1900s and converted them all to Christianity. Now the Mizos are a majority Christian population that are quickly giving up their old customs and adopting the new mode of life that is influenced by the West. The people have a social policy that involves community service where they help each other out. The Mizo family that I had met here had taken me in, even though I was a stranger, and treated me like a friend. It was a wonderful feeling to meet such hospitable people because it made me feel secure on my journey that I was taking alone. They even helped me with arranging my accommodation ahead and told me what to look out for. Their social policies really make the Mizos wonderful people. Mizoram is also a wonderful place for tourism. They support the arrival of local and foreign tourists to witness the beauty of the state. Mizoram also provides excellent facilities for travelers.
Sir, they don't have mixed vegetable. They can prepare only aloo.
The wonderful thing about the places up in the hills is the fresh life with Mother Nature. The ingress of humans to turn this into a more urban area may be one of the lacking features here. But I believed that it serves the best purpose. There is a sense of absolution, breathing fresh, unadulterated air surrounded by beautiful flora early in the morning. Out here in the open, I sympathize with the other travelers chasing their riding or driving dreams. I believe that the true sense of humanity rests in helping fellow travelers, like this man who had a flat tire. Being unselfish and honest meant that good things can come with a little effort. The Victorinox Swiss Army knife that I carried represented the ideal with which every traveler should be. Honest, powerful, and light, and most importantly, prepared. I wouldn't think twice to help out again, because all it takes is a few minutes of your time out from the schedule, and you can prevent a person from struggling alone, no matter how big or small the cause. In this case, all I needed was to help fix a man's flat tire, and it would save his journey so much trouble. The Champai district of Mizoram extends from India into Myanmar. It is like the state of Punjab, which has a province with the same name in Pakistan. Getting into Myanmar was one of the things on my bucket list for this leg of my journey. And there was only one narrow passage for me to get there. Myanmar brought with it one of the best times I would have had. Although the country is poverty-stricken and at a low Human Development Index rating by the UN, the people here do not lack the hospitality at all. This union between countries represented the understanding and compassion that we human beings inherently have. It's this ability to be the social animals that separates us from the rest of the crowd. This camaraderie between the nations was clearly represented in our little session. I made friends across the border, which transcended race, religion, and culture. It was a wonderful feeling to know that these nice fellows would celebrate my dream along with me. The humility that they showed forged a memorable friendship. One of the true tests of a vehicle and its pilot is that of the road. How one handles the road separates a veteran from a rookie. On these unforgiving roads, however, every veteran is automatically demoted to a rookie. I proved that point further when I dropped my phone while riding. Luckily, when I retraced my steps, I found it in one piece. The phone was my only way to travel through here. since it allowed me to track my footsteps and find possible paths.
Thank God, I got my lifeline back. I dropped my mobile.
On the way to Manipur, I was faced with a detour. Advised by a woman to not take the route that I had planned due to it being unsafe for lone travelers, she insisted that I take the road going through the national park. While I was skeptical, she confirmed with her boyfriend that the route was safe. Determined to see this route through, I took it and met a few hunters along the way who made me second-guess myself. However, my fears came to rest when they behaved friendly and also advised me that the route I had originally planned was unsafe and guided me through to the exit. It gave me the courage that I needed to go through uncharted territory. As I reached the end of day 23, it was late and I needed to rest. I came across a tourist lodge named Tourist Lodge. I wonder if this could be a tourist lodge. While I was trying various routes to traverse, I took what I thought was a shortcut and took a fall. And what better way to prove that I had an accident than to tape it? I left the motorcycle lying where it was and took out my camera and took a shot. Not the first course of action to take, but I at least have my proof. The lack of governmental support for these sister states causes travel in these regions to become extremely calculative. With the lack of fuel stations, fuel has to be rationed out by local dealers, and these dealers are really scarce. As I neared Manipur, I could see the emergence of the Manipuri locals. Like their other eastern counterparts, these were people that were one with nature. Hunting was a major means of livelihood for these tribes. I was fortunate to stumble upon a BJP representative who I had a small chat with to see what sort of improvements the Northeast needed from their point of view.
Then all the district headquarters of the state should be interlinked by wider roads. This should be priority. And second thing is there should be proper drinking water vessel should be there. Water? Yes. Assure water. Okay. They are not harmful to the human beings. Potable water. Okay. And number three, there should be basic health facilities should be provided to the, especially the people who are living in the hilly and terrain regions. Education. Proper education facilities should be provided in the state by providing all at least proper infrastructure and other amenities. We should promote agro and horti-based industries by plantations and processing and marketing. It should be systematized with due consideration of the conservation and the protection of our natural resources and environment, the biodiversity. Because Northeast is no better than we. Or biodiversity hotspot on the southeastern region. In the Myanmar, biodiversity hotspot is lying on the line of Mizoram and Manipur. So we have plenty of natural resources which are not unrecognized, which may be very endangered, maybe in dynamic species, maybe flora and fauna are there. So we should promote it, we should protect and conserve it.
As I took my time to dwell on the journey that I had taken, I reminded myself that there is nothing greater than accomplishing the dream that I had set out to finish. Preparation can only take you so far. After that, you have to take a few leaps of faith. I felt relieved that I was accomplishing this by overcoming the fear that had clouded my mind when I began. It was a sense of complacency that I hadn't felt in a little while. The fear that I had turned into the strength to progress and see this to the end. I had felt a vigor within me, which made me ecstatic at just reminding myself how far I had come, alone. Of course, the only company that I had was my motorcycle. You begin to realize how much an inanimate object can become animate when you desire it. The company that it gives you is something you begin to learn as you progress. It's important to have something to do to prevent your mind from slipping while you are alone. The journey continued into the countryside, where roadways became waterways. The large amount of fresh water in these regions is attributed to the location and the climate. Sometimes a ferry was the only option to cross the mighty Sangpo, which is what the Brahmaputra is known as in these regions. The ferry serves as the courier for all sorts of vehicles, and these people are extremely adept at managing the loading and unloading. And just when I thought that I was done with my stroke of bad luck, my motorcycle's spark plug had a circuit break. There was no network in this region, and a heavy motorcycle that was stalled was not a good thing. So I pushed my vehicle down to the nearest mechanic with the help of a few locals and got it fixed. The mechanic also recognized that I was a traveler and took me home to get me some home-cooked meals and a place to rest for the night. Most of the Northeast has a dearth of good healthcare units. The mechanic's mother, for example, was suffering from severe stomach pain and needed to see a doctor. The nearest doctor also confirmed my opinions about the lack of good healthcare facilities up here. He explained how they needed to travel to Assam for simple tests.
It's just like as if we are walking in the 18th century. Okay. We are still relying on our stethoscope for diagnosis. We have few laboratories here, but no pathologists, no microbiologists, no biochemists. It's just some technicians who are running the show here. Okay. So we exactly cannot rely on their reports also. And what they are doing is just the basic test, like malaria test, typhoid, vital test, blood routine examination. Nothing extraordinary. If we just need an simple ultrasound, we have to send the patient to Assam. Assam. Yes. People like you who come here, can show the world how this Northeast is. Unfortunately, South India is quite better, but in North India what we see is that people hardly know about Northeast. Okay. Very little knowledge they have about Northeast. When we go to Delhi, even now when we go to Delhi and all, first thing they'll ask you is Nepali, are you Nepali? Or sometimes if you're looking a bit, like Japanese or Chinese, then they'll say, are you Chinese, Japanese? They'll never say, even if you say that you're from Arunachal, some of them they'll say, of course we know that they're illiterate, but being illiterate also at least in the mainland India, they should know about the whole of India. Isn't it? What they'll ask is, where is China? When you say we are from Arunachal, they'll say, where is it? China, Japan, Korea, like that. So it's very awkward situation for us when we go to the mainland India and face this kind of a thing. In Arunachal, at least the feeling is not there, but in other parts of Northeast, like Kerala and Nagaland, there's some of them, maybe not all of them. Even when we were studying in Bangalore, one of my classmates was in Nagaland. He never used to call himself Indian. He was ragged, he was told to say that he's an Indian, he never said it. This is the kind of feeling that people have, some of the areas, they have this kind of feeling about India. And in Arunachal, at least, the patriotism is very much there. Every Arunachalis will say that they are Indian. And Northeast, I think, India, Arunachal is the only place where almost everyone speaks Hindi. Even if you go to a village, you just speak to them. At least, even if he or she is a remote village, a little bit of Hindi he or she will know. But even a place like Assam, which is much developed than Arunachal, some of the people they don't speak. Nagaland, you will hardly find anyone speaking Hindi. Meghalaya also the same problem. Mizoram the same problem. Manipur, I was there from 2004 to 2007. Now what I know about Manipur is they know Hindi very well, but they don't speak.
I was on my way to Arunachal Pradesh, one of the most talked about states from northeastern India. A place that is facing excessive turmoil from both Indians and the Chinese, all the same. It was disturbing to hear the tales from this doctor, explaining how Indians themselves don't know about northeastern India. As I contemplated what the doctor explained to me, I realized that a lot of it was true. Here in India, racial discrimination exists to a very large extent. Even the literate folk act out of sheer ignorance when they cannot identify a northeastern Indian, more so another human being. This sort of bullying and discrimination needs to be tackled from the center. The lack of that discipline and human compassion is what is making India an unsafe place for travelers. The doctor who took me in was one that was informed about my arrival from one of his colleagues who was staying on an earlier section of my route here. These people had such a friendly nature that in order to look out for my safety, the doctors had decided to help out by informing their friends about my arrival. Northeast India has always been famous for their citrus cultivation. The acidic fruits are a necessity for the livelihood of the people here. Sweet limes and oranges are a major business. Families make their own wicker baskets and sell off large quantities of these citrus fruits. In these traditional parts of Arunachal, I came across an interesting fact. Some people here eat insects as well. One guy was happy to explain to me which insects were a part of their diet as he opened a bottle of the captured critters. The motorcycle broke down along the way. Again, a doctor helped tow the vehicle to a nearby garage. Alas, the mechanic was missing from his place of work. After searching for a bit, we found that he had made his way to a lottery shuffle, trying to make a few quick bucks. These kinds of lotteries were common here and actively involved young people who were looking to grow rich quick. The people here were so compassionate that they were ready to assist in any way possible. The doctor, for example, who was with me throughout, had turned on his car lights to provide light for the mechanic to do his work. After getting the motorcycle fixed, it was time for me to head on with my ride. It was a momentous occasion for me, since I had felt like I had accomplished the impossible. I could literally feel the victory surge through my spine. As I approached interior Arunachal at 0, one of the coldest places in India, I experienced firsthand what it was like to be an Arunachali for a day. The people of these tribes were a unified sect, where families prepared and had dinner together and always had a sense of togetherness once they had all gathered at home. This family had also gathered because the person who invited me had met with an accident recently. His close family members had gathered here in order to pray for his recovery. Moving on to Itanagar, it became clearer that the problem with these places was just the insecurities that existed within the people. I was only met with extremely friendly folks who were as hospitable as I would have liked to be. My emotions were on a high, where I felt a sense of satisfaction that I could tell this side of the story to the world soon. And as luck would have had it, I was interviewed by a couple of folks who were taking some strangers' thoughts towards the Northeast. These two were informed by other Northeastern comrades about my arrival here, and they wanted to understand my perspective on my journey, the things I had witnessed and learned, and what I love about this place and my country. Clearing out of Itanagar, I knew I was on my way home. These places had grown on me because of the time I took to understand them. I took a detour and entered Bhutan, a princely state located in the northeast region of the Indian peninsula. Bhutan is primarily a Buddhist nation, which still follows a monarchy. The people here are a Mongoloid race, who incidentally have very Hinduish names. Their culture witnesses grand celebrations as a part of their calendar year and the king's birthdays. A peace-loving country, which has some of the most vibrant and beautiful people the world would see. "41 days had passed since I began, and I found myself in a small cafe here in Bhutan. I learnt a little about their history and about the various monarchs here. The couple who owned the cafe here explained how their benevolent king throws celebrations to the people and is always helpful towards those who need it. A kind-hearted nation as a whole. After my short stint in Bhutan, I had a long journey back home. This was the time that I took to reminisce what I had accomplished over the past few months. After all, at the end of a fruitful journey, memories are the only wealth that a person can take with them. This philosophy is what I applied to my life as well. I had lived life on the road and witnessed a spectacle that I thought was incomparable to anything I've ever seen before, even the Himalayas. A profound understanding of what I had seen and heard made me realize that we people make our own problems. It wasn't only people down south or up north. Humans have evolved as a destructive and violent race. In times of need, they unite, and in times of desperation, they fight. What matters is whether they can fight united. But in the midst of all the chaos, there is still a large number which exhibits compassion and understanding. I've seen the goodness within each of them. Every region, every religion, and every tribe comes with its own story. The message that we take from this is that to receive good, it is our fundamental duty to be good. To respect humanity as a whole, transcending the boundaries of color, caste, or sex, is what we humans are meant to be. With this ride coming to an end, I had accomplished my 10-year-long dream to travel to every part of India, and as an Indian, bring back a view on what it is like in the other parts of my nation. As an Indian, I feel a sense of glory and pride to have witnessed what it is like in every single state that makes up my nation as a whole. I am proud to say that I am an Indian now, that I have been to every state in India. As I got back home to my family and friends, I realized that I was a lone traveler. A lone South Indian? No, a lone Indian who had witnessed that every person that I'd visited was my friend. I have 1 billion people on my list, and no matter what they are different in, each one is the same to me. With that on my mind, I travel on to new boundaries.
The starlit skies will fade. Fly with me, oh Thunderbird. So far away, so far lost in silver mist. Fly with me, oh thunder. Come on now, fly with me. Oh thunder. Come on now, fly with me. Oh thunder. Thunder, thunder, thunder. Thunderbird, go Thunderbird, go Thunderbird. Go Thunderbird, go Thunderbird, go Thunderbird. Go Thunderbird, go Thunderbird.